ibew in short, is actually going to be very exciting because it's a lot bigger than the previous event, which is the Singapore Green Building Week. I have in fact been doing this roadshow for the last 4 or 5 years, and we were promoting on sustainability for the past few years. But for this year, we have rebranded to International Built Environment Week because we are enlarging the content not only on sustainability, but we focuses on construction technologies. I think we all know there are a lot of exciting transformation going on for the built environment. So example, using drones to inspect buildings, using a BIM to design all the way to maintenance. We also have smart solutions. So it's going to be very exciting with the broader profile. We are expecting 12,000 professionals from the region to congregate in Singapore this September. Yeah, we have a lot of exciting technologies. We have a lot of national pavilions coming from Germany, Japan, Taiwan, China, Korea. So we do foresee a lot of interesting engagement, yeah, between the built community to learn from each other, to share case studies, to envisage and discuss about trends about buildings of the future. So our Manila leg is the first leg of our roadshow. So we would like to actually come to Manila to engage the built professionals, including my speakers here today with me, to share a bit about what's exciting in Philippines, how to collaborate with people from the region about projects, about implementing solutions that will help the market as a whole. So that's what the event is all about. Yeah. So next to me is Mr. Ecuador. Ecuador is from BOMA. Yeah. So
Building Owners and Managers Association of the Philippines. Okay, I'm here. I was invited. I was so appreciative of what ibew been in constant communication because we especially in the Building Owners Managers Association of the Philippines, we do the management, no? We do the like condominiums. We do the management of these projects, no? Now we're into a green building with energy efficiency and so water efficiency, resources efficiency that should be also being discussed, especially in this international building and built environment week in Singapore. Now, as on the side, my profession, I'm a professor in a University of Makati. I'm teaching a course, a 4-year course, dealing with majoring building and property management. It's the only university in the Philippines, I think even in Asia, that offers building and property management. No? And at the same time, I also teach in the executive MBA program, also major in building and property management. Why? It's what's the relationship? Building and property management. No? Now, all projects, all condominiums, all buildings are into green building technologies. So that's why we must be up to the times. Now we have to the trends that have been going on. What we will teach or what we will impart to the students is to be ready, no, in managing, operating green building, which is now the trend. No, that's how what's being constructing now, even not only in the Philippines but abroad. So we will be here to maybe to let you know or to impart to you some of our undertakings and what we will be doing, especially that we have special guests and speakers here also that will maybe impart to you their knowledge and their experiences and their learnings about sustainability and productivity in green building technology. Beside me, Sergio.
Good afternoon, I'm Giovanni, I'm an Italian architect and I'm here to represent IDC, Italpina Developer Corporation. It's a publicly listed company, real estate developer company, founded 10 years ago. We celebrated 10 years of activities this year. And founded by an Italian architect, Romolo Valentino Nati, and a Filipino attorney, Jose Lista. And it's a developer company strictly committed to developing green buildings in a virgin city in the Philippines. Our projects are practically design on performance-based design using parametric software. This means that for our sustainable buildings, we gather data from the environment, from climate, environment, and elements, and we integrate this data and information in parametric software that will elaborate the data and will generate a model. This model will be the best one among a numerous solutions and will be the one that we will follow during our design phases. The projects of the company have been multi-awarded, and we have projects in Cagayan de Oro, that is in northern Mindanao, and now the latest one is in Luzon, in Santo Tomas, Batangas. The three projects have been awarded as best mixed development buildings in the Philippines by International Property Awards. So I will be presenting later on the projects, and I will be describing the sustainable elements that make them green. And of course, as a topic of the seminar, how can we build low-cost green buildings? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm going to try to talk in terms of English, but I may segue to Tagalog because we're all
Yes.
Filipinos here.
Yep.
My name is Gio Carino. I am the President, Managing Director, and Chief BIM consultant of Prodigy AE Incorporated. We are a company who was founded. We were founded in 2008. Our strength lies in allowing our company, our clients, companies, leverage and get realistic results in terms of avoiding as much as 25% in the cost of developing the building. Now, the technologies that we use are actually, as my colleagues would say, are already long rooted in the market, in the ASEAN market, in the global market, and contrary to a lot of our countrymen, it's also rooted in the Philippines ever since 2008 and well beyond. We helped build
YP,
some of
the
the key
one-stop local
projects
search
here.
site of the Philippines.
Sorry.
Thank you. It's okay. Like Glorieta, one of the projects, Park Terraces, in Port Bonifacio, in Alabang, and so many other areas of the country. It's just that it's not been publicized. So a lot of the beneficiaries of these technological processes have been the corporate property developers here. So this year, we're hoping to be able to allow our government to utilize these technologies for the infrastructure developments that will be happening in our country. What are the advantages and the benefits that they've enjoyed thus far since almost 10 years, more than 10 years ago? For one, these technologies are related to digital building construction. When you say digital building construction, it's all about anticipation. In all the areas of technology and fabrication and manufacturing, we have what we call prototyping. In our buildings that we build, we don't have prototyping because no one would spend insane amount of money to build something and then build it again. Okay? So the natural essence of that is to put something into the digital world and then replicate the results into the built environment, which is what my colleagues are doing. So in our presentation this afternoon, we'll try to show you, give you an idea what the realistic approaches are, what the realistic effects are that are being enjoyed by the corporate culture now that could translate and actually spill over to the development our country is enjoying right now. Part of that development could be areas that are controversial, like transparency. Part of that development could be as controversial as budget monitoring, tender requirements, and so on. We'll try as much as possible to answer your queries, your questions, and try to simplify the technology so we can present it to you in a very clear-cut manner. So that would be what I would like to share for now. and then later on we'll share.
Okay. So actually, thank you for that. So actually, we are opening the floor for Q&A.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it was mentioned that most of the things that you guys are offering are for companies, private sector, and it's like you want this to trickle down to the government and for low-cost projects. But given that these projects could be somewhat more expensive, how do you make it more affordable or accessible?
Actually, based on our experience of more than 10 years, that's the misconception in the market. Technologies like this have been perceived to be expensive mainly because of the perception of huge initial investment required and the limited perception in terms of time for recovery. You know, when you presented the technology, you don't know yet at that moment if it's going to work. But we can tell you that, for example, for building information modeling, it's actually less than 1% the cost of the building. So if you put the cost at 1% only, and you put your taxation VAT at 12%, that's really a good advantage for you. If you invest in 1% and have the ability to save as high as 20%. So that makes more sense in terms of the financial impact. Essentially right now, the processes that we're going to be discussing only amounts to around 1 to 1.5% of the cost of the building project. And the cost avoidances and savings, I say cost avoidances because as you prepare in the digital world, you're not supposed to create the mistakes in the real world anymore. That's why you're avoiding the cost. Once you build it, the value in terms of savings is that you can check for material consistency, pricing, alternative methodologies and solutions. Then you get your savings. Okay, so for that cost, for that 1 to 1.5% cost, the value is actually
Actually, may I add on? I mean, in Singapore, we use what we call PPVC, prefabricated, prefurbished volumetric construction, meaning you actually design your house off-site, like the Lego, and then you bring on-site to actually essentially build your building. We have 2 projects in Singapore. They actually save about 6 months of construction time. That translates to savings that actually will help overcome this misconception that the investment is too high, people are not going sustainable. So actually is to maybe share a bit more of what technologies can do for companies, for developers actually.
This is actually the effect of prototyping.
Yes,
So in
that's
your
right.
automotive industry, in your product design industry, they have prototypes. Okay, but in the building industry, we can't afford prototypes. So the essence of that is represented in the virtual environment that we try to recreate. Okay, and this is not new technology. A lot of the other industries that we have right now, the medical industry, cosmetic industry, all of them, they have prototyping industries already. It's just that we're trying to transition this into the construction industry here to leverage the advantages.
I can speak about our buildings, how we design our buildings to keep them low cost. And actually there are two strategies to have a green building. Is using passive green strategies and active green strategies. Of course, the active means that you will have to adopt elements of high technology elements that are still costly, expensive. So what we do in our cases is to adopt passive green strategies, and that you will gain through the climate elements like natural ventilation, shadow control devices to control the sunlight, are all elements that are not costly and will keep the price low for the building, giving the possibility of reduce the power consumption through natural elements. So this is a way to keep a green building low cost and affordable, of course, accessible to the middle class in the Philippines. This is our experience as developers.
Uh, Current state of you're promoting green building in the Philippines, for instance. What is the current state, or is there really a trend going green for building construction, or how many of these buildings are, or property developers are now accepting the offer to go green, and as against the vast majority that continue to,
The traditional.
the traditional engineering concept, whatever.
Well, that's green concept is an interesting word. Based on my practice right now, we started out. The Philippines started out as a green-driven community. Back then, tropical architecture, bahay kubo. That's always been there. Okay, so this adoption for green technology, for me, is just revisiting what we started back then, and tying it up with our current technologies and our life, the way of life right now. Because when we look at our communities from before, it was related to minimize trash, recycling, reusing available materials. That's also the essence of green technologies right now. It's just that right now we have virtual technologies, we have prototyping technologies, 3D printing technologies to try to test it first and see if it's going to work, and then try to replicate what we have. Okay, so really the misconception there is the disconnect in terms of how the terminologies are perceived as against to how it really is in the actual practice.
Sir, could you answer another question? Current state of
The current state of green building is really on the almost. You mentioned that the developers who are actually almost all of the developers are now into green building technology, and you would notice only here in Bonifacio Global City, almost all of the buildings there are green building, are influenced or designed for a green building. Not even they will not say that it is a green building technology. You would see in their some of their designs. Example is the energy efficiency, the water efficiency, the resource efficiency. In the design, they will start it at the siting. They will start. The project will start at the siting. They will take a look what the site is all about. Is it near a supermarket? Is near the school? Is it flood prone? And the soil and the foundation, they will do it in the design. And then not only that, what is environmentally friendly, And also, as far as us in the operations and the management, we're looking into the health factor, the ones who will use it, So now that's their approach, towards the development. Now the green building is specifically environmentally responsible and resource efficient throughout a building life cycle. We're talking here of the life cycle of the building. You will say that green building costs a lot, but in the long run, you will know that it costs less. Then we, on the management side, on the property management side, we will be managing it on the basis of the green building technology. We will be using the resources, the materials resources, and what you call the indoor environmental concept. We do what would be very safe and healthy for the users, especially if it's a office condominium. Are they safe there? Because we're talking of the indoor air quality. Now, not only, and we go back to the design. Are the windows really the sun? The direct sunlight, they're using technologies that would help this out. So something like that. It's about doing things that would be friendly, environmental friendly and health concern conscious to the users. And that helps us in the we've been talking of lowering the operating cost.
If you have a question, I guess let's ask the young lady with the glasses. She raised her hand.
into promoting green building, how about renovating spaces that are built right now that is not green, that is not built
Existing.
the existing, yeah. the
Okay.
existing. How is it
You know,
gonna-
as we in the property management, there are, as you know, there are buildings, old buildings, no? But it is not a law to renovate it. No, if you wish to have it on the trend that you want your building to be a green building, you will do a lot of retrofitting. When you do retrofitting, meaning you are adapting to the design that would lead to green building. But you cannot brought down the building and then build a new. No, you will just do something else. When you say you want on the energy efficiency, you replace the lights, the bulbs into a LED. Okay. As far as the plumbing is concerned, you go to the CR now of the different buildings and even in the malls. You know that the plumbing fixtures are water efficient. They do the traditional one as you open the bulb and the water flows freely. Now, you would notice that you say, what you call this, you did that, you just go there and then there's a water area, you put your hands inside and then this, and even the water closet. The water now is controlled. No? So, when you flush, a little water, and there's a technology in the rainwater, converting rainwater into those water that you could use as far as the cleaning and then in the restrooms and everything. So everything, you can convert those things. Those are easily to be converted. Air conditioning, the indoor air quality. Normally, the old building syndrome is there. And then you could just put in place what are those things that needs to do to control those kind of diseases, no, that would affect. Now, there are certain things you could put in the or to protect your indoor air quality. Some plants can be put, no, and then yung the use of the VOC, the volatile. The paints that you will be using is more on a less toxic, and so on and so forth. So it can be done, but the problem lies in the budgeting. If it is a condominium, normally condominium has no funds for that. They will do a special assessment, and if all the unit owners agree for a special assessment, they can do it, regardless of how much, as long as they would be agree to the assessment. But if it really takes a lot of budget, no, to convert it to a green building.
So, sir, in the Philippines, how far are we in that
Direction.
the buildings in the Philippines?
Building in
How far are we from that green spaces or green buildings?
oh, we're on maybe I think the developer could answer that how what's the real score.
Yeah, there is a really good response to green buildings. Of course, now we see that the climate is changing, and of course also the way you build and design is changing. So you have to expect that technology assists you, of course, but especially in the Philippines, you have a lot of natural elements that can help architects and developers to implement what I said before, passive green strategies into the buildings to make them green sustainable, that can reduce what is the most, I would say, consumption here now in the Philippines is air conditioning. If you adopt solutions that will reduce the energy consumption, water consumption, that will be a long-term. Of course, I agree with what was said before. There is a perception that green buildings is expensive. Green technology, constructing green buildings is expensive. But in long term, you have a return in profit, meaning that you have low maintenance and reducing the expenses of energy and power. So that's the advantage of green buildings.
I have a question. Curious.
I think it was already answered because I wanted to clarify what actually caused the Philippines to go back to this green policy.
there's a strong notion of the no-win proposition when it comes to.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Sorry.
There's a strong notion in the country of the no-win proposition when it comes to green projects and their environmental compliance in relation to manufacturing costs. So you're telling us, you were saying that there's cost savings in the long run. So
Correct.
how long do you think before it reflects? Because before there's a.
It's difficult to say because it depends on the type of building, from rise, low rise. It depends. But in our experience, we see that, as I said, using passive green strategies and, of course, localizing the sourcing of construction products and materials, that will help a lot. Not only that, but also in our case, for example, we coordinate and cooperate with local professionals, local contractors, local manpower. That means that you don't have to buy products abroad or bringing your workforce from far away. If you search in the area where you are constructing, you will reduce the cost of the building.
How compatible is it with smart city integrations that's happening right now? The green projects, how compatible are they with the smart city integrations? That's the usual these days.
Well, part of smart city is in terms of capturing data. Okay, so capturing data would mean capturing the amount of flushing water that you put out, capturing the amount of trash that you put out in your building, capturing the amount of usage that we put out. And then from there, you will have the basis of how to fine-tune your solutions in terms of the green environment.
Okay, but
Good afternoon, sir. In the Philippine context, you're pushing for a green building, green technologies, but a number of developers still do it the traditional way. What are the key factors you're looking at in the Philippines as to why developers still opt for the traditional way? And moving forward, how can we address this and convince them to go green?
Well, as my colleague said, it's cost. It's always cost. But there are other ways to look at it. Like, for example, planning-wise, when you plan your structure, you plan your building, you can incorporate efficiencies already in terms of how you plan your structures. Simple compliance to occupancy standards. For example, if your unit has been computed to only allow 5% occupancy, and you put in 10% occupancy, definitely there will be an increase in pooling. You have more people to pool. There's an increase in water waste output because there are more people using that space. So as simple as that area, you will have your impact already. That has nothing to do with waste. It has a lot to do with adherence to our pre-existing policies already. So that's for me, that's one. Okay. In terms of cost implications, my colleague said localizing it, having other opportunities to actually not necessarily lower the cost, but making it more efficient. You know, it's two different areas when you think of low cost, mura, and efficient. Efficient may mean that it might appear to be more expensive when you buy it, but in the long run, you're saving up on your power. You're saving up on sewage disposal, waste disposal. So there are pros and cons. That's actually what we're saying.
Just a follow-up. Maybe you're looking at, maybe you're in talks with policymakers or lawmakers as to measures to make it easier for developers to push for green initiatives in order to get, or maybe what you want the government to do.
Personally, at the end of the day, we have policies in place. It really is how you implement this. In a condominium setup, it's private. They cannot mess with your policies there. So implementation for that should really fall within your small community. That's why you have your homeowners association or implement. But that simple occupancy ratio, that really has a lot of impact.
Maybe to support the two questions, using Singapore as an example, again, depending on what green initiatives you want to implement, the cost could be 2% to anything from about 5%, and the payback is anything from 3 to 6 years. So we do have statistics over time because of the number of buildings that we have in Singapore that's green, that you can actually use that to convince developers why they should, embrace some of these initiatives. So that has been the range that a lot of developers are working with in the context of Singapore. So I think likewise, as they bring a business case to a developer, it is always about how and what you can implement that will perhaps make your payback more meaningful. Yeah.
In addition to about government intervention, actually there is already a law. It's on the second reading, the Green Building Act. So it's a matter maybe of having it passed, and then the IRR would be the one that will be the basis of what should be done or what should be implemented the soonest. Actually, that's been a long time already. The Green Building Act. Actually, our organization before, during the time of Senator Bongbong Marcos, we were invited to join the crafting of the revised building code. And the building code already introduces some green building technologies to be in place as far as the Philippine setting is concerned. That's the law, the National Building Code. I think the National Building Code. I don't know whether it's because the term of Senator Marcos already ended, and I don't know what happens next. What I learned is that also the Green Building Act is been already for the second reading and just waiting for maybe for the third and the final approval of that law. And that would answer your question on what the government is doing as far as the green building technology is concerned. Maybe the buyers and the developers are specifically mentioned on that law.
Question over here.
Well, I'm going to be bold as to say building developers will not be saving because they're not going to be the users of the space. For example, if I'm a building developer, I build a condo, I spend on green, I put capital investments on green technologies. The actual beneficiary of that are the users of the space, the condo unit buyers. So, and essentially, if you're a developer, you invest into this, cost gets passed on to the consumers. So eventually the consumers will have to be the one to ask the question and to evaluate the question, is the green policy, green environment actually going to be beneficial for the individual consumer, essentially. Okay, but in that framework, I would say yes. Because in the long term, you pay less, not necessarily cheaper power, but less energy you're consuming.
Less city services.
Okay, less water consumption, more efficient water consumption in that respect. Okay, so I just had to clarify because that's usually how the case is in the industry.
And question? Yeah.
What about for the government? I mean, for my first question, how receptive is the government in terms of adopting this for their international, especially for the building?
I would believe they are very receptive because there's already
There's already a law on the green building. The act is already on the second reading. And the other thing that I've said is there was already a hearing on the revision of that building code. So initially the government has already been doing about it, and maybe just stalled. Maybe this coming 18th Congress with the time now, since they are looking forward on what would be beneficial to the as going back to the investment, actually especially condominium, their investment of those buyers, the developers were just building it. It will boils down to who will own this. At the start, it is the developer who is building. They will input cost everything, and then they make a market the cost of the project. And it's still you, the buyers, the end users, who will decide what kind of investment are you into in. You want a building that's not health conscious? Are you want a building that is that would free you from some expenses in the future, your savings? It's still a choice of every individual that who wants to invest in a real estate, particularly condominiums, because eventually you will own that condominium for your lifetime investment. So what will you do when you buy something else? You want a long-lasting and the rate of it's maybe appreciation of that value. In property management, we always say increase and enhancing the value of that investment. We do that for every individual investor or unit buyer of a real estate, especially condominiums and subdivisions. That's my point.
So, any more questions?
Okay. Gusto ko lang ibabalik kasi green building is always concentrated on the condominiums and high-rise building. How could, like me as a consumer, if ever I would, yung my own property, bahay lang, it's a bungalow, how could I parang masala ba or ma-qualify yung
Green building.
Yeah. I mean, also in choosing the materials or the contractors or whoever going to supply the materials for particularly sa bahay lang or in mga bungalow type.
Yun pong sa, I'm trying to answer it. Yung pong sa ganyang sitwasyon, ano yan, first, if it's existing yun talaga, it will boil down to your private practice pagdating sa how you run your house, your facility, everything. So you need to look at efficiencies, yung tap ng tubig, yung excess gamit ng kuryente, yung excess init sa loob ng facility mo. Kasi kailangan mo palagin yan. Okay? Kung masyadong konti yung bintana, hindi masyadong makalabas yung init. Masyadong ng malaking bintana, papasok yung ulan. May mga ganun po eh. So that's the first instance. Kung existing na.
If not,
If hindi existing, you're trying to build something new, you first look into planning. Planning po talaga ang importante. So, you need a very efficient layout, yung walang sayang na lugar, yung well-ventilated, well-lighted, even without mechanical enhancements.
and do we have parang list of who are qualified contractors for that particular
Architects.
Well, right now, all I would assume all the architects are qualified to do this because we studied for this. We have tropical architecture, which I was mentioning earlier, na doon talaga nakabase po yung orientation ng araw, panggagalingan ng hangin, paano nagtatakbo yan into the house, our experience inside the building. The real key there is when you're doing your construction, you really have to implement and stick to it properly. Nagkakaroon tayo, there are instances when we deviate with the architectural plan, that's when some issues happen. So for example, if a building has been planned to have specific openings to allow air to go in, and you try to close one opening, so definitely there will be a problem. So in that essence, for me, that's how yung doon po nagsisimula on a very small scale, on the public consumer. Doon po nagsisimula.
Kasi it's your own preference, no? When you design, siyempre tayo naman pag nagpapagawa po ng bahay, lagi pong hinihingian tayo ng plano before you be given a building permit when you construct. So sa building permit, you will be required to have a plan, a construction plan. So when you construct with the maybe of your architect or your designer, you could already put your preferences. What do you want? And even they would advise you. Sometimes this is the sun, the morning sun, and this is the afternoon sun, and they even this door should be placed on the south or on this. There's something like that. The same as when you do green building in your own. Sometimes, where is that dirty kitchen? Or you will put a dirty kitchen. Is it near the how about the smell of the garbage? Those things are within you. How do you prefer it? It's for your convenience always. Plus, put in what are the consequences if you will not use the green building technology. By using green building, I will be saving a lot of money as far as the energy consumption is concerned. I'll be using this kind of water resource in the plumbing. I'll be saving a lot of water. And using paints that are not toxic or the non-toxic one, or your health. When you move in, the smell is not there. The bad smell that usually occurred when you took inside in the building, in the room, the house. That's
Thank
it.
you.
Still your personal preferences.
Okay, going back to the exhibit,
Yes.
sorry. So as of now, have you reached your target, or are you on the
Yes.
invitation?
This year we are quite excited because last year we had 2 halls, but this year we have 4 halls. So with the expanded profile, you will see a lot of new technologies that is being showcased. So for example, just now I mentioned PPVC. So you will see modular kitchens, modular rooms, modular toilets even being showcased. Is to engage the community to see what are some of the things you can do, manage cost savings, manage quality, quality checks. You can do it offsite. You can save costs on resource because Singapore we limited land, so we depend a lot on labor. So one way of managing productivity is to do this offsite, and then when you come to the construction site, you can do the Lego building a lot faster, which is the 6 months project example that I shared with you. So those are all cost savings as well as managing efficiency. So we have drone demonstration. We have very interesting smart solutions. In fact, Bosch is coming to display, and they are showing how a smart home or a smart city, potentially some of the technologies, So I think we are very excited. We have a lot of new brands on the show floor. Essentially, new products, new solutions that companies can explore.
Yeah. Okay. So estimatedly, how many companies will participate?
We are
in the
expecting
showroom?
550 brands. Yeah, actually this one. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I looked at the building law that you were
Yes.
talking about earlier, and you said that it was way back around Senator Bongbong Marcos's time, so that's around 2010. So it's now 2019. What's taking it so long? What do you think? I mean, why is this not being given a priority?
Actually,
Do you think by the government? Do you think it's not one of the
it was
priorities?
it came to a time that the election time came, and the revision process is not yet over, because they invited a lot of stakeholders there, not only us. We are invited because we are do the managing of the buildings, and they invited maybe the developers, the construction industry, and everything. All the stakeholders are invited to do the nitty-gritty of revising it. And the revising is not an easy task, because somebody would maybe oppose it, and somebody would agree with it. And maybe one reason that the delay is maybe the time that the election time comes, that Bongbong Marcos was done campaigning already, resigned or finished his term as a senator then, and who for an election for vice president at the time. Now, I don't see also, I don't know the reason why the Green Building Act is still stalled until the second reading. And maybe, I think as one of the proponents of that is, I think, is J.B. Ejercito. And now J.B. Ejercito is not, does not won in the election. J.B. Ejercito was very good as far as the real estate is concerned. He authored all the socialized housing and the health and everything. Now he's gone, and who would now take care of the...
Just a follow-up question. Is there any word from the government if this will be refiled in the 18th Congress?
I think so. Maybe we in the organization, not only the BOMA, we have also the PABA and other organizations, would be much glad, because we're the stakeholders that been affected to it. Because the building that we're managing are into a annual building inspection. So the local government visit your building every year, and if it does not satisfy the standards, you will not be given a permit, a building, the operational permit, wherein is a requirement when you renew your building business permit.
Just
So
another question, guys. In the presscon forum yesterday, the Economic Development and Infrastructure
Yes.
Forum yesterday, one of the things they really discussed was climate change in the Philippines.
Yes.
And one of the moves that one of the things the government presented was the smart city in Clark
Okay.
and the transfer of buildings there, I believe. So I think this is actually related to the question earlier. How does green building come into play with smart cities?
Well, for one, if you notice about the strategies, it's all about decongestion.
Yeah, the congestion is not.
There's a lot of volume per occupant requirement here, concentrated in the metro. So what can we do? There's limited space, but there's a lot of us here. So the first stage, I think, when you look at everything, it's decongesting it. And when you develop that, you also plan for potential congestion in the future. And that's where the green systems are coming into play. Congestion in the future related to where you're located to the local conditions of that area. And for example, Clark. Clark right now is originally a military base that was converted by the DCDA. Okay, and as far as planning is concerned, it has its own merit in terms of being the ideal location for several key areas. One of which is, not so much flooding. Okay, it's quite accessible in relation to your expressways. In relation to that, but if in relation to current situation of travel of personnel, population-wise going south, it's not so much. That's why there are infrastructure projects trying to connect these two locations. So the sustainable green initiatives will play a big part into that. For example, in terms of the number of occupants that will be slated to go there, in drafting policies for buildings to be designed, like for example, we put up people centers. How many what's the ratio per square area per occupant? Currently, right now for PESA, 6.5 square meters per person per occupant for PESA. So we don't know yet if they're going to be implemented there. So that's where the impact of the policies will come from. In terms of the investment for green technologies, it will fall under the developers who want in the development phase for Clark. Green Building City, if I remember correctly, was awarded to Philippines in before in the city department. So they're going to have to be the ones to look into these technologies, and we're aware they're also looking into these technologies.
In addition to about decongestion, you would notice other neighboring countries. Look at Thailand. Their own airport is the Don Mueang. Now they build a newer one, but outside of that Bangkok. It's in Suvarnabhumi. It's how many? Almost 1 hour by car, and a lot of toll gates. While in Don Mueang, it's just maybe going to Bangkok, just maybe 15 minutes. So they do it because Bangkok, Thailand, is so much as far as traffic is concerned. So as far as this congestion is concerned, they have a lot. I've been to just last week in Bangkok. I've seen a lot of some changes as far as the traffic is concerned. Not before. Every Monday and Friday, God, you would look at the traffic. It's messy. Maybe just more than than Manila. Also in Hong Kong, before all the airport in Hong Kong is just near the city. While the bigger Hong Kong is now in the big island in Hong Kong. So you will be riding a lot of train, fast train, bus, and everything. That's a way maybe in relation to decongesting about the buildings, and it's about people, it's about the environment. That's one reason maybe, because just we are just maybe against some management of change.
So what you're saying is decongestion. We also, in a way, help Metro Manila in terms of like lessening the people occupying the buildings.
It's not really lessening the people occupying the buildings. It's more on helping, the supply of water, the supply of electricity, manage the consumption properly. Because right now, there's no telling. We might even be more people here. if we don't put up any means to decongest the population. I'm not saying you limit the population. You can never limit the population because opportunity people will go to. What the decongestion that we're seeing right now is trying to create centers where opportunities will be so that people will naturally go to those opportunities. And that's where you get your decongestion. I hope so, because one of our challenge right now is waste management. Right? Quezon City alone, if I'm not mistaken, that's 2,000 plus tons per day of garbage. So, and we're running out of landfill material. So, part of Green Initiative is really looking into new technologies to actually leverage on how we reuse and then recycle, our waste. So I really do hope so.
You said earlier that we're just revisiting our old, way of engineering or in terms of architecture. What happens? What changed in between, like before, and why are we revisiting it now? Or in between that, what happened? Why did we stop
history.
in a way?
Because before we were colonized, we were doing that. When we were colonized, so Western mindset was brought here. And what Western mindset was fueled by feudalism before. That's why we had your forts, right? Different areas. And the conditions were there, were European conditions. These are Asian conditions. Okay, so now the reason why we're feeling this is because it's getting too hot, it's getting too arid in our areas. And so people tend to look for inspiration from the past. And most, green technologies are actually inspiration from how they used to do it in the past. This is what you call biomimicry, some sorts. Biomimicry, some sorts. There are designs right now that mimic, how nature reacts. So all of this are actually inspired by nature. It just so happens that our ancestors are already doing this. We actually chop off Manawi just to be able to plant rice, right? So that's adaptability, adaptation. It's in our history. Okay, so, that's what happens when you have mix of cultures already, and comes with the mix of cultures. That's not to the locality, which my colleague was saying earlier. That's how we're trying to approach it now.
So I think this built environment should be, designed to the current environment or to promote adaptability or
Absolutely.
maximize whatever you have.
Absolutely.
The wind, the sun.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that right now, I'm not so sure if this has been put up into the new building code, is that, notice we're 7,000 islands. We're a coastal country. And I'm not so sure that we've anticipated that into our building codes. There's a lot of shorelines that we have right now. Easement-wise, the DNR already implemented the 50-meter zone easement. But with sea level rise, which is one, if I'm not mistaken, almost 10 centimeters for every 2 years right now. So it's just a matter of time until that 50-meter zone recedes, right? So policy making wise, we have to take a look at our real situation in our country. Being a coastal country of that sort. If you measure the total length of our coastlines, because we're 7,000 islands, that's a lot.
That's why some developers are using the theme, resort theme. They use the technology of lumivent, no? Meaning they design building using the technology of illumination, meaning lightings, and ventilation. So that's already part of green building technology.
You see a lot of our condominiums that have holes in them. That's what Caesar is referring to.
You're saying that we have more with the environment.
Absolutely.
But
That's the issue.
I will show you in my presentation. Our buildings all have opening on the sides to facilitate the airflow inside the building. I will show you later in my presentation. Yes. It's not ventilation, nothing, no technology.
Yes.
It's just
Free
the
air,
environment that
natural.
offers all what we need.
Okay, so any more questions? This is the liveliest question and answer portion. Any more questions? We still have maybe room for one or two more.
Good.
Is there seeing a lack of, let's say, implementation from the side of the government, given that we already have building rules and whatnot, even with the DNR?
Well, from my opinion, it's not so much lack of implementation because there are agencies that really do want to implement these sort of policies. We've seen DNR implement this fully. We've seen Boracay, the Bay. So there are signs already that the government serious in implementation. So for me, it's not so much about the lack of implementation, but you know how it is when you transition your mindset from the implementer to the recipient of the policies. You try to carry it and spread it. That's, I think, what's still lacking in our society right now. You know, our society just loves to watch things being implemented, but participation should also be the case. Like what we said earlier, the real recipient of these green technologies are the consumers. And if we just keep on waiting, you know, there's a lot of resources out there. We can study. You know, there's no rush to implement this. But the rush will be when you start feeling more heat, less water right now. There's no supply. Less water, you know, less waste to dispose of trash. When you start feeling that more and more on a daily basis, you know, I hope it's not the only time that we try to look into this on a personal level. You know, there are signs already now that does this.
Do you think the problem is perception? First, the way people accept the idea of green building.
Yeah, actually, it's not so much a problem, but it's more of, you know, how everybody digests food slowly. You know, it's more into that because the information's out there. We've been exposed to this for the past 10 years. So really, we just have to relate this to how we go about our thing.
Okay.
The last question.
I think that there should be more urgency in passing the Green Building Act.
Okay.
Do you think there should be more urgency in passing the Green Building Act?
Actually, supposed to be. There should be, and not only siguro. I mean, maybe the concerned people are into, because it's about not only for every developer and for every investor. It's for everybody. It's because it's about the environment. It's about what will come out of these new buildings that will be constructed nowadays. Is it adaptable or is it friendly, health friendly, free of things that would be very bad for the health and for the occupation and so on and so forth. It's the concern of everybody, and it should be the concern of all, no?
So thank you. I'd like to bring the press briefing to a close. Before we invite our panelists for a quick photo op,
Okay.
I would like to thank our media guest friends for coming over. First,